As we enter into a worldwide techno-communist dictatorship, we will all of us be subjected to increasing surveillance, checkpoints, questionings, and interrogations. If the educational program hasn't completely destroyed your ability to critically think, and you still have some vague, distant dream of being free, then you will need to hide those thoughts when in public and especially when interacting with government agents. You will need to become what the Chinese call inscrutable, meaning no one can read you. The following short essay was to be included in my book, The Art of Urban Survival, but I left it out for some reason I forget. Mastering discretion is greater than employing eloquence, a Chinese proverb. The first rule in the art of war is that all is deception. To succeed, a strategist must learn to see his opponent's deception while creating his own. To hide one's inner intentions, our inner goals and desires, one must suppress non-verbal leakage. Our attention being limited, we cannot manipulate and control every verbal, facial, and bodily expression all the time. When lying, it is impossible not to allow some nonverbal leakage to occur, despite our attempts to suppress telltale signs. While it is not possible to suppress every gesture, we are able to fake and control enough to fool all but the most observant. There are 3 general strategies to prevent giving oneself away: to suppress, to disguise, and to manipulate nonverbal communication. The King strategy. The suppression of nonverbal communication is accomplished by making as few physical movements as possible. The face becomes a mask set in a certain attitude, such as concentration or nonchalance. The hands make only minimal number of actions when needed to carry out tasks. The rest of the time, they are folded on the lap, or held behind the back in military fashion, or crossed with one hand thoughtfully supporting the chin. The body is kept still, no movement made without purpose. The idea is to provide so little body language that no one can detect any other meaning. The ability to suppress nonverbal leakage is a result of superb body control and self-discipline. An additional benefit is that people unconsciously defer to those who communicate less, both verbally and nonverbally, and are less likely to presume to take an interest in your affairs. The Fool strategy. The second strategy is the exact opposite of the King strategy, playing the fool. It involves a non-stop display of acting and gesturing. The idea is to provide so much body language that it is impossible for the opponent to detect the true mood beneath the surface display, not being able to read the signs because of too much background noise. There are several roles the fool can play. Some use continuous pantomimes. Others pretend to be angry and upset. Some tell jokes and puns or flirt and tease. Playing the fool can also be an advantage by having people underestimate you, someone not to be taken seriously. If no one takes you seriously, they are less likely to examine your motivations closely. The Sage strategy. This is the most demanding strategy of all, since it requires an acute presence of mind to control both verbal and nonverbal communication, to intersperse true signals with false signals. You manipulate the opponent's perceptions to make it seem that he can read you, but what he sees is only what you've allowed them to see. For example, you could affect a nervous gesture, such as squinting of the eyes or an impatient gesture of the hands. You exhibit these signals when telling inconsequential lies, so that other people would easily recognize them as a tell. Then, when telling the big lie, you could suppress this false leakage. Conversely, you could be telling the truth, but exhibit the leaked behavior to trick your listeners into thinking you are again lying. How to behave when innocent. If you always act according to a code of honor, you need never fear an accusation. There would be no need for strategy. However, righteously or not, there may come a time when you will have to defend yourself against an accusation. The following are some basic rules to follow. Non-reaction. The best initial response to an accusation is silence. Pretense to outrage seldom appears sincere, even when sincerely felt. Redirecting blame immediately elsewhere only confirms a guilty conscience. Furthermore, proposing theories and scenarios sounds as though you have already prepared a cover story. Do not immediately deny an accusation outright. Use delaying rather than redirecting with such phrases as, "You may have a point there. I really don't know all the details yet, and as soon as I do, you'll have an answer." Or, "I'm afraid I'll have to disagree with you on that." Listen. Allow the case to be laid out completely and note flaws and inaccuracies that can be used later in your defense. Ask questions. Even if you have no purpose in mind, by asking questions, you lessen the effect of the accusation by making it mundane through repetition. If innocent, then the more attention given the accusation, the greater the likelihood of being shown innocent. Respond with dignity. Never attack the accuser verbally or otherwise unless protocol requires it. The use of derogatory remarks and slander against the accuser shows a lack of character. If there is a flaw in the accusation, then point this out in a way that can be understood. But condemning another person's opinion as just being stupid is not an argument. How to behave when guilty. If guilty of minor offenses, confession and expressions of regret will allow the matter to pass quickly. Balking at taking responsibility for a minor offense can cause greater damage to your reputation than the minor offense itself would have caused. If guilty, but confession would place you in a dangerous position, then use the following tactics. Delay. If possible, avoid having the accusation aired and avoid responding in any way. To prevent the accusation becoming more widely known, interrupt the accuser with unexpected emergencies. Threaten to sue for slander. Claim infringement on your human rights, privacy, and freedom, or file court injunctions against publication. Say as little as possible, since any information you reveal may be used later to show a contradiction. The best response is as follows. Since there are legal proceedings underway, I am not allowed to comment. This is just a less sinister way of saying no comment, but it implies that you would love to tell the truth, but are not allowed to because of those overcautious lawyers. If the situation is not serious enough to merit this response, the social equivalent is as follows. There are other reputations at stake that I cannot comment at this time. Again, it implies that you would like to explain, but are restrained by a sense of duty to others' reputations. Redirection. Find someone else to blame. A co-worker, the system, society, your childhood, or God. Find someone who is unpopular, peculiar, or just looks guilty, and use him as a scapegoat. Since you cannot accuse someone else directly without losing credibility, have co-conspirators work behind the scenes to plant evidence and direct suspicion onto the scapegoat. Counterattack. While delaying, launch a subversion campaign to undermine the evidence and credibility of the accusers. The classic method is to find some incriminating evidence on the accuser and use that information to blackmail him into silence. If incriminating evidence does not exist, then some can be fabricated. Drugs and pornography can be placed in the accuser's desk, car, locker, or home in such a way that others will find it first. Have co-conspirators spread malicious gossip about the accused. Commonly used slanders include rumors of drug and alcohol abuse, homosexuality, pedophilia, devil worship, and a family history of insanity. In essence, what you will be saying is, I would be glad to answer the accusation, but for the fact that the prosecutor is a Satan-worshipping, alcoholic, homosexual pedophile with a family history of schizophrenia. Escape. Finally, go on sabbatical, take a vacation, have a nervous breakdown, and move out of town until things cool off.